I went ahead and grabbed a lesson. This is an economics class that I came up with. I'll just by way of, I don't know if it's focused as well, but it's pretty clear, I think. So on the left is this panoramic camera that I made reference to, and if you look, I can actually go around the room, and I can show you. There's actually the person setting up the camera right there. That's the classroom, and I can zoom in. Now, obviously, especially on the projector, the resolution will degrade, obviously, when I do. And then there's another camera that will stay focused on the board for the entire time. And occasionally, the professor, the teacher, will walk in and out of where the board is. I can zoom into or zoom out of the board as I see fit as well. And the normal process, if I were the teacher, would be for me to type notes as the lesson proceeds, and when they do, you know, it'll make a comment on the video. So, again, you wanted to see video. I'm not knowing how much or how little is worth seeing. I'm just going to hit play, and you will cue me if you want to see something else, or tell me to stop, or as you see fit. This is a 12th grade. You see the 12th grade social studies macroeconomics class. The teacher's name is Josh, for what it's worth. Okay. Just bear with me. Let me just make sure I've got my internet connection still. She's just fun.
Who is on there?
You told us
I'm not telling.
It's for her own good. Okay, please check each other's to make sure you have generally the same diagram. Do you guys know what a trough is, by the way?
Yes.
What? Well, not on this picture. Yeah, it's like you know, like where a pig eats. It's like the little bottom thing, like that. You know, like a scooped out bottom where they eat out of a trough. Okay, now what I want you to do is mark a point with an X or anywhere you want that shows unemployment. Where there's unemployment during this cycle, where there's unemployment, mark with an X or a dot or something like that, and then show your friends. Ready? 1, 2, 3, showdown! If you all have the same answer, have one person put it up in the air so I can see it. Okay, you guys are good? You guys are good? You guys are good? Andy, you guys are good? Okay, don't erase the whole thing. Just erase the dot on the unemployment, which happens during recession. Okay, so you should have had your dot anywhere between the peak and the trough is where unemployment's the issue. Okay, the next one is, it's a tough one. Mark where there's inflation is the main problem. Mark where there's inflation. Mark where there's inflation, the real problem. Ready? 1, 2, 3, showdown! Oh, there we go. It's starting to get exciting. Yeah. Good job, you guys got that one, okay? So inflation happens anywhere where you're having an increasing GDP. Okay, the causes of inflation are people are buying more goods, the demand curve is shifting out, consumer income is rising, and therefore prices are rising. Okay, so you have to be concerned about inflation anytime times are good and GDP is rising. Okay, now mark a point on your diagram where GDP is increasing. Mark a point in your diagram where output is increasing. Okay, 1, 2, 3, showdown. Okay, you guys got that? Kevin, did you get it? Okay, you don't have your axes labeled, so this axis right here is GDP, and this is time. So then you could see GDP is rising as long as this is a positive line. This is why it's important to mark your axes. You should have GDP on the side and therefore it's going up anytime between here at the trough and here at the peak. GDP is rising. Okay? Now I want a single point at the point where a recession, recovery from, oh, I'm sorry, not a recession, where recovery begins. The end, the official end of the recession should be a single point someplace on your diagram. 1, 2, 3, showdown. Once you show your group and decide, have one person, okay, Alyssa, you got it?
It's enough. Did I hear enough? It's a showdown. I picked this randomly. I'm not trying to illustrate a point. I mean, obviously, I didn't realize I had picked this one with this child A, not terribly concerned about the video camera, as you can tell. B, not terribly concerned what we think about him. I offer it without editorial review. I could show you lots of different examples. When we produce things for professional learning, we edit them in some ways because there's a point at which you kind of get it. And I'll say one thing that we'll speak a little bit about that we learned in the Met study. From the standpoint of accurately scoring lessons on a rubric, Charlotte's and others, we scored on many rubrics. We did lots of research on, did we come up with different judgments when we watched 45 minutes of a lesson versus 15 minutes? And it turned out that we did not. Now, it took us a long time to back down to that 15-minute level to learn that that was roughly the cutoff point. But now, a lot of things will start to happen in this lesson. He actually does deliver a lecture, but not for another 8 minutes. I happen to know because I've seen this one before. For 8 minutes into the lesson, he'll actually deliver a lecture on macroeconomic theory. But it's he's doing this task at the beginning, so you would miss that technically. So you'd have to see a certain amount of the corpus of a lesson to score. But I will say, for those of you who are all talking about doing research around video, you watch a lot of dull activity. All of this philosophical conversation we had before about, the intellectual engagement of the lesson. I wish we were spending our time around intellectual engagement in so many of these. A lot of what we see is not inspiring. To be honest. And I wasn't here to try to inspire you. I was here to show you what happens when we put a camera in. Well, I don't have that example, but I will say typically they're shocked. The first reaction is, but it's the same shock we feel like when we see ourselves on video is the first shock. We don't sound the way we think we sound. They're those levels. They're amazed at the students. Like, as much as he's aware that that student is putting the pen on his nose and whatever else, like, I don't think he would see it the same way it appears on TV. It's sort of like, oh my God, did I really let that go on? And and there are things like that that you just don't recognize. Another thing that will happen in some lessons where they wander around in the camera, you can zoom around, and if, for example, these kids over here are up to something different, right? You'll notice he'll have missed things that he just didn't. He never saw happen in the room that they'll comment on. People don't know what they don't know. So what he won't comment on, I think there's an enormous amount of wasted time in this lesson, as I've seen. I'm just looking at it right now, and also I've seen a little bit of it before. And sometimes it'll take a coach to sort of say, did you think about the pacing in such a way to ask the right questions about the lesson to get at that? But generally speaking, people are very favorable. It's a positive experience with a little bit of a jolt about seeing yourself. Yeah. Yeah, they're not. Well, they're. It is fair to say So it's fair to say you're missing things. It's also fair to say he's missing things, right? I mean, he's talking, he's hearing what he's hearing, but your point is a valid one. We have not got a technology. We have some other versions, again, with more time, where we're trying to get closer to what's happening in the other end of the room. The real trick is to build, this is a little technical, but we need to build audio zoom to mirror the video zoom. That's the ultimate frontier, so that when you navigate, when I scroll around, the audio goes with it. That's technically doable. It's non-trivial technical work, especially for a browser-based application that has to work in Israel when it's being hosted in San Francisco. So, anyway. Sure, no, sure.